นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ One person that many Buddhists of my generation, both ordained lay Buddhists, feel a lot of gratitude towards this Englishman called Alan Watts, who later we went to live in America and was once referred to rather slightingly by Edward Conser as the sage of Sausalito. But his example of someone who had a wonderful gift for expressing Buddhist concepts in the modern idiom, one that's very accessible without compromising on the profundity of teachings, and it's in my mind because I just mentioned him to someone just now as being an example of someone whose personal life was a bit of a mess, not a particularly someone who practiced what he preached in every way, but he certainly inspired many people to take up practice of Buddhism, and myself amongst them. I still have a strong memory of the day that I picked up a book by him. I could really say it was a turning point in my life, really. That time I was still at school and doing my A-levels in England, and being completely disinterested or uninterested in the subjects that I was supposed to be studying, and spending most of my time studying other things. And on a Saturday morning I'd catch the bus to Cambridge and go in some of the bookshops there. There's one that huge bookshop, so 3 or 4 stories, thousands and thousands of books, and most of the people who work in this bookshop are like ex-students, so they sympathize with people with no money, like myself. And so I go into this bookstore and just find myself a little cozy corner somewhere and take a book out and start reading it at about 9 in the morning, and 12 o'clock just leave a fold over this corner of one of the pages and put it back on the shelf and go out and have something to eat and come back at 1 o'clock, and I could read a whole book in a day that way, and without having to buy anything. I didn't have any money to buy books, and so I was ploughing through books on philosophy and psychology, Gestalt therapy, all kinds of stuff, and then I came across this book by Alan Watts, and I was so inspired by it I actually bought it, which is some kind of so I took it out. I took it out of the bookstore, and I was so excited, and I couldn't get to the bus stop to catch my bus back, and I sat out on one of the benches and sit out on Parker's Peace in Cambridge, and in the big park there, and just avidly devouring this book. There's this incredible sense of recognition of he's articulating something that was very deeply embedded in my very consciousness, and it's something I'd never actually been able to put my finger on. And one of the key concepts that I'm not actually sure it was the first time that I met this concept. It was the time that it really clicked with me. Was the fundamental principle that defilements are not inherent to the mind. There's a sense of defilements clouding, obscuring of the mind, arising due to causes and conditions, being conditioned phenomena, therefore subject to waxing and waning, increase, decrease, and ultimately cessation. And that was such an important point for me because realized that apart from anything else, that spiritual life was not a matter of personality, of trying to develop a certain kind of personality or spiritual personality, replacing one personality with another, but seeing that all mental states being conditioned phenomena and being without an owner, and that the path was open. There's a sense of hope, a sense of possibility there, a sense of absolute contingency, the sense of freedom that was opened up as a possibility because of the fluidity of phenomena, because things are conditioned, because there's nothing fixed. There's nothing fixed, so there's nothing that one needs to be depressed about or feel guilty about or to look down at oneself for. At the same time, there's nothing you can be really too proud of and conceited or puffed up about. There's a sense of absolute fluidity, movement, and it seemed to me at that moment that there a path opened up, a path towards a question that I'm asking myself over and again: what's a good life? Is there such a thing as a good life? Who decides what's good or what's bad, what's right or what's wrong? Are these just conventions, suppositions, agreements amongst groups of people or cultures? Is there something more fundamental than that? And this classification of fluid phenomena, contingent, conditioned phenomena, as being wholesome and unwholesome, the unwholesome phenomena as those which are based on greed, hatred and delusion, and indulgence in which increased the greed, hatred and delusion, and the unfreedom of the mind. And the wholesome dhammas as those which led away from constriction, led away from pain, led away from suffering, and led to liberation. And it seems such a simple but real, true expression of the way things are, that I've never doubted in that ever since. You know, And I think no matter how long we practice and how many things we've been through in our practice, and both the heights and the depths of practice, then this is this very simple principle, is one that we need to keep coming back to again and again. Sense of abandoning the unwholesome and developing the wholesome. Recognizing, identifying what is the unwholesome, and finding skillful means of abandoning it. In certain cases, this may mean not tolerating even for a moment. In other cases, it may mean gradually chipping away. But there has to be that joy in the effort, and a confidence in the meaningfulness, the ultimate inevitability of success if we are consistent in our efforts. It's the identifying the wholesome and seeing its beauty, seeing the nobility of wholesome Dhammas, and noticing how wonderful the truth is. I think it's that the love of truth which is something which sustains us on the path. And I'm sure this is something similar with all of you, and I noticed it myself in so many times. This incredible piti that comes from seeing the truth of something, even something very ordinary and mundane, or even reading in a story or in a poem or something, and just that sense of, yes, that's exactly how it is. Someone a simile, comparing one thing to another thing, and there's this incredible joy at an apt simile. Yes, that's exactly it. This is two dissimilar things, and he's compared them, and yes, that's exactly how it is. And that, in a quite a mundane sense, perhaps, is an indication of that love of truth, love of the accurate, the precise, clear definition of truth, the ability to get this clear, unmistaken correlation between our perception or understanding and how things really are. And so, in this path, this is the holy grail. This is what we are aiming towards, the realization of truth, and we put up with the difficulties and the obstacles because of that love of truth, and that's where the passion is. This is why monastic life is not this kind of dried stick, miserable, grim, frowning kind of endeavor, but there's a sense of passion is there, and this passion for truth, love of truth, sense of moving away from the darkness towards the light, moving from the false to the true. Why is it those words are so inspiring? Because it's the very idea of moving from the darkness to the light. Appear in every kind of religious symbolism, moving from falseness to truth. And in Buddhism, where tradition is particularly psychologically acute, there's a sophistication there which I don't think, at least I've not found anywhere else, a sense of analyzing very clearly what prevents us from realizing truth, rather than just kind of pumping up the inspiration with metaphysics and descriptions of what the truth's like as a kind of abstract principle. But in Theravada Buddhism particularly, we really go into, well, what is it exactly which is preventing us from that realization? And these are the defilements, these mental habits, these forms of indulgence and delusion, which take over our minds when we are heedless, when we don't pay attention. And part of mindfulness is a part of paying attention to our experience, respect for every moment of our experience. I would say that our lives are often characterized by disrespect, in the sense that so many moments or whole periods of a day in which we have no respect for what we're doing. It's merely a means to do something else, a means to get something else. Whenever we look on a moment of experience as a means to something else outside of itself, and there's no mindfulness there. There's no sense of appreciation. And meditation techniques that we use, whether it's anapanasati or using a mantra, whatever, what we're learning is learning how to appreciate, learning how to pay respect, to be attentive to the nature of things, the nature of our minds and bodies, to get away from the habitual, time-bound, linear kind of mind, and be willing to start again over and over and over again. So we're not meditating for an hour or 2 hours. We're constantly meditating for the length of the breath, the length of an inhalation or length of an exhalation. And the Dhamma, the akaliko Dhamma, timeless Dhamma. So the extent to which we're bound up with thoughts of time, is the extent to which we are missing the point, and that we're far from the Dhamma. So the more clock-oriented we are, the more time-oriented we are, the more we miss the Dhamma. And so in meditation, we're learning to taking one step at a time, taking one breath at a time, taking one moment at a time, and learning to be attentive to how things are, rather than how we would like things to be, or how we think they should be. So this is the most direct and powerful way of cutting through those learned and unwise ways we relate to ourselves, other people, the world around us. This is the work that we do. So there needs to be an intellectual awareness of the liability, the disadvantages of relating to ourselves, people, in that way. But it has to be grounded in that the practice of wisely relating to a single breath. That's the acid test, isn't it? We may have some theories and beliefs and ideals about how we should live our life. The acid test of it is, how do you relate to an in-breath? How do you relate to an out-breath? Is there grasping? Is there rejecting? Is there ill will? Is there agitation, clarity? Is there dullness? What is our how long, how much are we able to maintain that freshness of and attentiveness to the experience of our reality, which is our mind and our body, moment by moment. This is the real world. The real world's not out there and outside the monastery gates or in any particular mode of life. The real world is the real world of our experience. The real world of our experience, the more we look at it, the more its solidity starts to fall apart. And you see this constant fluctuation and movement. You see how the body affects the mind, how the mind affects the body, and so many subtle relationships and feedback loops between this mental states and physical states, and not judging everything by how we think it should be, but being right there with this clear, sharp, alertness mind. That's the quality that we want, appreciative alertness, both sort of a sharpness and a softness, very tough and resilient, but at the same time very gentle, with all the time in the world. You've got all the time in the world for an in-breath, all the time in the world for an out-breath. There's nowhere to go, nothing else to do. Notice any intention to control, to get away from, to slip into boredom, the trawling of the mind for some more exciting, interesting memories or fantasies. It's all, your whole life is displayed in each moment. So when we're attentive in that way and we see the structure, we see conditioned nature of things, it becomes very clear which mental states are to be encouraged and which are to be cut off, starved. We see how certain things build up and increase the sense of confusion, darkness in the mind, those which increase the brightness, clarity of the mind. And here's where we begin to understand more profoundly what kusala dhammas mean, what akusala dhammas mean, what the meritorious mental states, demeritorious mental states, punya and papa. You see what these are. So it's not merely a matter of just being aware, but in the case of the dhammas that we're aware of, there's dhamma vijaya and analysis and also the effort to abandon and to develop. This is not merely a matter of being a witness to whatever is there. Certainly, the witness mode is one in which kind of automatically burns up certain defilements. They can't coexist with the sense of watching and looking but there are other things which you need definite work on. But as long as there is the right view and understanding that there is nothing there which is fundamental to the mind, it means there is always grounds for hope. No matter how something seems totally ingrained and it's you, Ajahn Jayasaro says you have to take it on and confront it and say no, it's not. And even if it seems that way to begin with, you don't go along with that. And we begin to see, yes, well, if it was you, then there wouldn't be any change in it at all. It would have to be permanent. And yet, particular defilements or negative mental states, they fluctuate. Sometimes they seem very strong, other times quite weak, sometimes completely absent. When we see how they're conditioned by things outside of themselves, through sense contact, for instance, then we see, well, there's no essence there.